up guys, I'm Brian, this is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for watching. Today we have a sibling TV battle from Sony. We have the Sony Bravia 7 Mini LED versus the Sony Bravia 8 OLED. Nobody asked for this, I decided to do it, put them together. You let me know which one wins. Thank you so much for watching. Alright guys, Sony Bravia 7 Mini LED 75 inches versus the Sony Bravia 8 65-inch OLED. Let's check out the design and the subtle differences between the two. Now I have the Bravia 8 on some blocks to make it a little bit higher to be in line with the Bravia 7. You have a more streamlined design where the feet can be placed under a soundbar. You have 4 positions, very small Sony labeling. TV can be narrow, out wide, and then also raised to make room for a soundbar. You also have very small bezels from the front on both. They both share a more textured back panel, very reminiscent of the old Master series. The Bravia 8 has a new design where its thickness is similar from top to bottom, unlike traditional OLEDs. The Bravia 7 textured through about 3/4 of it, a little bit smoother at the top, and the Bravia 7 actually isn't very thick for a mini LED. Alright guys, we move into our first demo. Much of the conversation is going to be about the strengths and weaknesses of both technologies, and they are going to be highlighted throughout this video, where mini LED will be superior in certain aspects and then be inferior in others. You'll see the same thing with OLED, where the Bravia 8 will shine in certain situations and then falter in others. What you're really looking at is the brightness of the Bravia 7 and also the shadow detail. Nothing is lost. Where in the Bravia 8, it's going to be all about micro contrast, not just in terms of black level, but within the material. And the superior contrast ratio is what really is going to stand out, other than just the better blacks. It's the micro contrast, what lives within each shot, within each subject that you're seeing on screen. And also, while these TVs are from the same family in the same year and they are set up exactly the same, you'll also see differences in color due to the technology. And that's just not really how they appear on camera. This is how they actually appear in person. There are times where one will look cooler than the other or warmer than the other. Now you'll find this fascinating as the Bravia 7 has excellent local dimming when directly in front. We'll show you off angle later. But what is fascinating is when you look at this shot here as the light drips down, the Bravia 7 initially will appear brighter and then not as bright. The Bravia 8 will have better specular highlights of being an OLED, having that pixel per pixel control. The Bravia 7 will appear a little bit gray or hazy initially due to the local dimming. The Bravia 8 will appear better. As the Bravia 8 becomes more full screen, it doesn't necessarily dim down, but you'll see where the Bravia 7 will appear brighter. It's just a take on technology. The Bravia 7 will do better on full screen white, where the Bravia 8 will do better on the smaller shapes of white. As it gets larger, you'll see that the Bravia 8 has more of a gray or white versus the full white Bravia 7. So it's very interesting to see what's brighter and what is not brighter in different shots where they trade blows. And here, due to the brightness, the Bravia 8 will have much more detail within the glass, even though the Bravia 7 isn't clipping. Now I'll also show you different presets, which is very important. We are in Professional, the most accurate preset. As we move into Vivid, the brightness differences become evident. Now, if one is separate from the other, you wouldn't really see a big difference. You wouldn't feel the Bravia 8 is dim by any stretch of the imagination. But this is where you're looking for mini LED. This is where you're looking for the difference, so there is more detail on the Bravia 8. Staying within Vivid, even with this plant life, where is the detail? Where is the micro contrast? You'll find that on the Bravia 8. Now, they both have the XR cognitive processor. They're some of the best processing in the business from Sony. So even in these vivid, very bright presets, both TVs will try to remain as accurate as possible, keeping the detail where it belongs. Now, moving into standard, in these flames, the Bravia 8 doesn't necessarily look less bright. That is what's so fascinating about OLED, and where the specular highlights can appear brighter than a mini LED. It's that contrast ratio. But if you look at that previous shot with the yellow screen and the glass of soda, you would think that brightness is massive. But when it comes to specular highlights and what really matters, a lot of times OLEDs will pull ahead. Brightness where it matters, and brightness with purpose. But it all depends on what you like, and that's really what this video is all about. You'll see here where the Bravia 8 resolves that steam perfectly, no haziness at all. Now, moving into Professional, where it'll be as accurate as possible, you'll see the differences in colors as we move through. Now, quickly in price, we'll talk about price throughout the video. Currently, right now at 65 inches, the Bravia 8 is $16.99, and the 75-inch Bravia 7 is $17.99. Just say to yourself, would you rather have a larger mini LED or a smaller OLED? That's going to be part of the conversation again throughout the video. Now, in these shots, the colors look virtually the same. What I love about these shots here with the coffee is look how much brighter and more clean the metal is on the Bravia 8. Has more punch, more vibrancy. Then as we switch to white and we switch over, you can now see how the Bravia 8 can look dull in comparison to the Bravia 7. That's why I love putting these shots together this way. I'll give one the advantage with a shot and watch them trade shots. It's not as simple as which one is better at everything. Doesn't really work that way. They each have their strength as you look at the pure white of the Bravia 7 on the cup and in the background. Now, moving over to my favorite piece of content from Jen for testing black bars, I'll put it into standard. It's a brighter preset, and you'll see the black bars are still excellent on the Bravia 7, especially on angle. But there is definitely more depth on the Bravia 8. I will move off angle and show you more about the color shift versus the black bars. The black bars still look fantastic on the Bravia 7, but it's the color shift that you notice on a mini LED as you move off angle. The Bravia 8 looks exactly the same regardless of where you are in the room. Very important as you look over, again, off angle, the fading of any mini LED. The Bravia 7 does struggle here a bit. We are very off angle, by the way. But you can see the Bravia 8 looks the same no matter where we are. Local dimming doing a great job here on the Bravia 7, no matter how off angle, above or below. Now, both in my comparisons and reviews, it's very important for me to show you each and every picture preset. For me, this is the signature of the manufacturer. It's what the engineering team is trying to show you. Standard being the most popular, as this is what the Sony TVs ship in. Now we'll spend time with each preset individually. We'll start off with Vivid, and then moving into Standard, which is a good mixture of both being bright, vibrant, but also trying to maintain accuracy. Moving into Cinema, you see as they go down, they get more natural, but still bright. Then you have Professional, which takes the place of the custom preset that Sony used for many, many years. Then we have this Calm preset, more of an eye strain preventative preset. And then you still have Photo, which has been here forever. They used to have graphics as well. Then moving into IMAX Enhanced was what we'll stay in for the rest of this clip. Now quickly getting back into the price, the Bravia 7 at 55 inches is $12.99 and the Bravia 8 at 55 inches is $13.99, only $100 in price difference. The 65-inch Bravia 7 is $13.99 and the 65-inch Bravia 8 $16.99. So you see a little bit more of a difference there. To me, the biggest difference is that the 85-inch Bravia 7 is $24.99 and the 77-inch Bravia 8 is $25.99. The price is all very close. However, the size difference between a 77-inch Bravia 8 and an 85-inch Bravia 7 is massive. Something to consider when you think of the picture quality between the two. Now you'll also see here I'm in something called Standard Enhanced. It's really where I take the standard preset and max it. Live color, black adjust, those features are maxed. Reality creation, just to give both more pop. I'll do that in the next shot with cinema, and I'll put that enhanced before putting them back to their regular factory settings. Just taking each preset and juicing them up a little bit, as this content is gorgeous and can be very saturated, taking that up a notch to show you what both TVs can do. Even pushing these settings up, accuracy still king for Sony. A very special thanks to Robert and Wendy Zahn of Value Electronics for supplying the Bravia 8 for extended review. Please consider making your next AV purchase through them. Check the description below for all their information. Let them know that Brian from Brian's Tech Therapy sent you. They will take very good care of you. Thank you, Robert, Wendy, and Value Electronics. The Bravia 7 was lent to me by Sony for review. It goes back very, very soon after it does battle with some other mini LEDs. Now at this point in the video, I have it in Cinema Enhanced. It's a more juiced version of the Cinema preset. What are you guys thinking about what you see on screen? What are you thinking about how they trade shots back and forth as we go through our good friend Jennifer Gala and her second channel, HDR Super Channel? We've moved more into professional preset to show you the same kind of content in a more accurate preset. Speaking of content, special shout out to the one and only Jennifer Gala and her second channel, the HDR Super Channel. Almost all of the content within the intro and the video belongs to those two channels. Check the description below for links to both channels. Consider becoming a Patreon member of Jen's channels, and you can download these same demos in full Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision. See how they look on your new TV. Thanks so much, Jen. Now at this point in the video, I want to talk a little bit about even covering the Bravia 7 and the Bravia 8 again this late in the year. I reviewed both about 2 weeks before launch at Value Electronics. I followed up as I do feel both the Bravia 7 and Bravia 8 are overlooked. Like many other TVs from other manufacturers, they are overshadowed by the stars in that specific manufacturer's lineup. In this case, it would be the Bravia 9 and the Bravia 7, and the Sony A95L versus the Bravia 8. Now in the fire dancing demo, it is punishing for local dimming. You'll see the Bravia 7 struggle a bit, especially compared to an OLED. But what you'll see that it has that the Bravia 8 doesn't have is there's more shadow detail behind her. You can see the windows clearly. In the Bravia 8, you do lose some of that detail. And again, the local dimming struggles are more evident when it's side by side with an OLED. What you gotta love about what Sony does is they will allow some blooming to not crush out the detail. That is their signature, and they will not compromise that. Now flipping to a brighter image where the sky is more blue and the sun is more impactful, but you then lose a little bit of detail in the clouds on the Bravia 7. Moving now over to a local dimming heavy shot. Lot happening here, smoke and in rain, and then you see the specular highlights are brighter on the Bravia 8. Now switching gears to this shot is very interesting at the end, but why are you seeing these differences? Well, the content that Jen makes exceeds 6,000 nits. It's not capped at 1,000, so these differences are evident when it comes to the specular highlights. And also when you see this change here for mini LED, the camera will push slightly blue, but this is true to life. This is really kind of what I'm seeing in person as well. Now, on its own, you don't know that when the Bravia 8 is by itself, but seeing them together, that's where the difference really shows up. These are the little differences that you need to know, not just between these two TVs, between these two technologies as well. Moving into this classic LG demo, where are the stars? Well, you'll see them, they are there. I'll show you momentarily up close. But it's interesting, again, seeing the control that OLEDs have, why they have those better and brighter specular highlights, especially when they're very small. They have that ability to control each pixel. In some of these shots, the images look exactly the same. No matter what, in my opinion, the Bravia 8 will look deeper than the Bravia 7. Then there'll be shots where the brightness will be evident. But what are you guys seeing in the comments? Again, this is pretty basic knowledge of mini LED versus OLEDs, but if you're new to this, you might find this fascinating. You can also see the depth on the hair with the micro contrast of an OLED. Now, checking out the stars up close, you can see the image there. You can also see how flat the stars are. That is on all mini LEDs, by the way. Even micro LED has a bit of a flatter appearance in terms of stars. What is interesting is that you'll see the color disappear. There's a red star there that's missing on the Bravia 8. In short, it all depends on what you value more as far as image quality. As you move into SDR, we'll stay in cinema for SDR, and SDR both are very good. The Bravia 8 is not going to be as bright in SDR, but I found it definitely bright enough. There's a lot of talk of WOLEDs not being bright enough in SDR. They're fine. For me, I don't have an issue with the brightness of the Bravia 8 or the A80J or A80L when it comes to SDR. I think it looks fine. And the Bravia 7 is obviously brighter. Here, again, you have a little bit of that bluer push on the OLED, but both look excellent in SDR. Remember, processing is again key for what Sony is looking to do. That includes upscaling as well. My question to you guys is, how much SDR content do you guys watch in both movies, shows, and gaming as we move into the Bravia 8 and Bravia 7 in Dolby Vision? Now, on the Sony TVs, we have three presets. We have Dolby Vision Vivid, we have Bright, and we have Dark. What has definitely improved this year, more so than even last year, is the entire Bravia line is definitely brighter in a Dolby Vision Dark without raising the blacks, without changing that image quality. Where my A80L, my A80J, A80K, definitely Dolby Vision Dark was too dark, specifically in streaming content, something like Netflix, where a lot of their images are quite dark anyway. I found Dolby Vision Dark to be unwatchable. That is not the case with the Bravia 8 and the Bravia 7. Now, Sony's Dolby Vision has improved immensely. The implementation is definitely much better than it used to, and we had some challenges with some of the TVs last year. Definitely more refined this year on all their TVs, a Bravia 8, Bravia 7, and the Bravia 9. Now, what are you seeing when we go into these shots? As we move into Dolby Vision Bright, you can see the Bravia 7 actually washes out a bit in comparison to obviously the deeper Bravia 8. But as we talk about the brightness of mini LEDs, I'll always say to myself and to you guys, brightness where it's useful, brightness where it belongs. Now, you'll see in Dolby Vision, some of that blooming shows up more in comparison to the Bravia 8. We'll definitely see how that compares to another mini LED as we compare Samsung's QN85D to the Bravia 7 next and the Panasonic W95A. Now, in comparing mini LEDs to OLEDs, it's never really been fair in both ways. You've seen throughout this video in many shots where the Bravia 7 is far and away the more vibrant and the brighter of the two. And then you've seen in other shots where the local dimming will hurt the Bravia 7 in comparison to an OLED, not in comparison to another mini LED, and that the depth and the micro contrast of the OLED cannot be stopped. Then there's the flip side where in some of the shots you'll see where the whites just cannot get white on the Bravia 8. That has kind of been solved with QD OLED and micro lens array OLEDs. And the level of, say, the Bravia 9 has definitely better local dimming than, say, the Bravia 7. So we are here truly in the high to mid tier from Sony, and that's why I feel like these two amazing TVs are overlooked as we move into gaming. Now for me, gaming is very interesting as Sony has one of the best game modes in the business in terms of its appearance. It is very clear, it is gorgeous. There are 3 different presets. There is standard, RTS, and FPS. Now FPS is one that out of the box you want to turn down or turn off black equalizer to give you that punch. I'll show you that now. When you ramp it up, it is useless and does not look good. It's really there designed to show you enemies hidden in corners and multiplayer games. But by turning it off, you still have the brightest game mode of those presets. So if you get the FPS mode on a Sony TV, knock down black equalizer to either low or turn it off. RTS is my favorite mode in terms of depth, but I will show you in a moment on Returnal why you don't want to use RTS in darker games than the Bravia 7. In a game like Returnal, what you're looking at is the heads-up display to see if there's any blooming on the Bravia 7. There is not. When you move over to this brighter area, you have more punch on the Bravia 7, again, more depth on the Oled. We are in the FPS preset. But then moving down to my favorite, RTS, which is the deeper one, the Bravia 8 is actually brighter. As I move over to the side of the ship, it is literally too dark to even play the game in RTS. Well, not too dark, but it's much darker. So this is why when we talk about video reviews or TV reviews or anything in comparisons, presets are very, very important. Standard is a great balance. But it doesn't always mean, especially in gaming where I feel local dimming is not nearly as effective, that choosing the brighter TV isn't always the best course of action. To me, OLEDs are superior in gaming as far as that contrast and the pixel response of being instantaneous. Now, the Bravia 7 has a very quick response, almost no blur at all. And again, the Bravia 8 may lose a little detail by crushing the blacks, as all OLEDs do to some degree. But in almost any scenario in gaming, I prefer the Bravia 8. But again, the Bravia 7 and Bravia 8 and Sony in general has one of the best looking game modes in the business. Very crisp, very clear, very detailed. You also can use reality creation to make things cleaner. As we go over to Ghost of Tsushima, we're looking at perhaps some of that black crush. And there's more detail on the Bravia 7, or at least showing that. I still prefer the Bravia 8's depth because this is a very dark section of the game. The Bravia 8 can actually make the Bravia 7 look washed out at times. That'll happen more in gaming than in any other genre. I also like using Demon Souls for shadow detail and walking in and out of the light here in this cavern. And what you're looking for is on the heads-up display, there is no blooming on the Bravia 7, but look how sharp it is on the Bravia 8. It's just a cleaner image. That's where that micro contrast is not compromised by gaming. It's not something that is built in processing-wise. You don't have to lose that. But the Bravia 7 looks very good here. But as we talked about earlier with the pricing, if you can get a 85-inch Bravia 7 over a 77 Bravia 8, and we compare those, that would be something to really consider. Much more TV for the same money. And in essence, even this comparison makes sense as they are about the same price as a 75 to 65. As much as I like the Bravia 8 and OLEDs, I would not get a smaller OLED if I needed a larger TV. As good as the OLEDs are, they cannot grow. They cannot get larger. So the immersion really is a factor here. Also in comparisons, pulling them apart from each other, they will look very different. Now for me, in closing, I love mini LEDs. It's where my heart is, but I always and typically do prefer the image quality of an OLED. So I would definitely give the edge to the Bravia 8. That said, for the money and for the larger TV, the Bravia 7 would be the one to get for immersion. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. Take care.